The following is rated not safe for work. It contains strong language, adult situations, and lots of spoilers. Discretion is advised.
In the criminal justice system, cinematic-based offenses are considered especially heinous. The dedicated attorneys who investigate these villainous films are members of an elite squad known as the Reels of Justice. These are their stories.
Order, please, order. The Reels of Justice is now in session. Judge, he belongs in a museum. Ryan Luis Rodriguez presiding. Your eyes for the Honorable Judge Rodriguez.
I hate those nicknames.
That's a good one.
Welcome to the Reels of Justice. Today we are hearing the case of the People versus Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, a 2023 action-adventure that features an aged Indiana Jones as he attempts to stop an evil Nazi time travel scheme as opposed to a good Nazi time travel scheme.
He'd stop that too.
For those of you unfamiliar with our court proceedings, we are here to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. As always, in this courtroom, films are to be considered excellent until proven awful, and the burden of proof lies upon the prosecution to prove beyond a shadow of a reasonable doubt that this film is guilty. Mr. Big Ben Haslar, you are representing the prosecution. You may present your opening statement.
I guess I am technically Ben Haslar, Your Honor, but I'm Big Ben from the year 2050. I was aboard a commercial airplane that accidentally traveled through space-time fissures that just exist up there in the clouds, apparently. We fly into them constantly, that's why you always have to rechange your watch when you land. The old ROJ crew and I were flying together to visit old Ryan, who retired and lives on a yacht to finish up his quest to watch every movie ever made.
Nice.
So after accidentally landing safely here in 2024, old Maynard went to New York City to visit McSorley's Ale House as someone's just about to drop a match on that bar tap in the next few years, and the whole thing is soaked with alcohol and it's just going to explode. So he wants one last round, and young Rob, you may want to as well. Old Dylan went to go buy some stocks for fish-flavored bubble gum for his younger self. It's going to be big soon, you'll see. As for me, I reflected on my legacy. You see, at my age, when given the gift of time travel, it's natural to think of where I've been, what impact I've made, and what all my grand adventures have meant. Nah, just kidding. I'm not doing any of that. I'm just going to have a chat with Jane Goodall for 2 minutes about how I was always going to meet her. You know, real meaningful stuff. And then I'll head back to the year 2050 and let younger Ben deliver the case that I already know wins. As I recall, it was a 2-1 split with Ryan casting the sympathy vote. But hey, a win's a win. Peace, y'all.
God, that ends up being right, because I don't remember what he just said.
Thank you, Mr. Haslar. Appearing on behalf of the defense is Mr. The Vern. Please present your opening statement.
Ladies and gentlemen of the esteemed court and of the jury, my client, Dr. Henry Jones Jr., aka Indiana, is a bit shocked and surprised that his last adventure was met with such hatred and demise by our prosecutor, Mr. Ben Haslar. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is a classic Indiana Jones adventure. It features fun chase scenes, a great villain played by Mads Mikkelsen, a tremendous partner played by Phoebe Waller-Bridges, a return of some wonderful characters, and we did some incredible heartfelt moments with this character we never got in any of the features. Now, I'm not here to defend that it's better than his other adventures. No, but that this movie I'm talking about is not a bad movie, as others have said.
Thank you, Mr. The Vern. Mr. Haslar, you may proceed with your first exhibit.
Unfortunately, Your Honor, this film fails from the very first frame, where we don't see that Paramount logo dissolve into some mountain shape. Because we're a Disney film now, folks, and they couldn't even be tongue-in-cheek with it by having that Disney castle kind of dissolve into a European one, which is where they start their action, by the way, in a castle. But no.
Oh, you got him, Ben.
They just prayed nerds like us wouldn't notice, but we did. And then from there, we're taken into an extended sequence that takes place just after The Last Crusade, where they made the choice to utilize digital de-aging on Harrison Ford. Digital de-aging is problematic for many reasons, but chief among them is that you're always aware that it's a CGI trick on a human body, and you're always, whether consciously or subconsciously, trying to see through the seams. And you're never really in that moment when you're doing so. Even when you think it's dead on, you're still thinking more about that while keeping your eyes locked on the face for those brief instances where the skin, hair, or eyes just don't look quite right. You're not invested in the scene when this is happening. And Dial of Destiny has one of those longest segments. It's just nothing but de-aging. It's the longest one in recent memory. So throughout the whole beginning, you're just not as invested. You're sitting there multitasking in your head thinking, okay, there's an artifact I need to focus on. Whoa, glimpse of weird indie. Nazis, whoa, there's weird indie. Oh, a train scene, weird friggin' indie. And this opening sequence is riddled with other problems as well. For one, it's missing that Spielberg touch, which they literally scream at you as the characters are talking about the Alliance of Longinus being a fake reproduction, which is, pot calling the kettle black, Dr. Jones. Granted, that's unavailable. But another flaw is Indiana feels like a Superman in his youth. In the Spielberg films, he's constantly getting beat up and just squeaking by barely. That's what made them thrilling and fun. In this original opening sequence, he knows exactly what to do, and he's never afraid of anything, and I'm never afraid for him.
I have to disagree with that. I think he has a lot more perils, especially in this one compared to his last adventures. There's some real states going on with this, and the de-aging never bothered me. I didn't even notice it. I watched this in theaters and thought, wow, that looks very convincing. I was 100%
looked good.
Yeah, no, I did. I was convinced that this actually did look like a young Harrison Ford. And the only thing that does not work for it is the voice. I think that they would have cast someone else to do the voice, like maybe someone from the video games, then it would have worked a lot better, because I'm sorry, Harrison Ford's old voice does not work in that new body. But that's the only bad thing about it. I think the technology for de-aging has evolved majorly in the last several years, more so than when they tried to do Carrie Fisher in the Star Wars features, or another actor from Star Wars, which I forget his name right now. But I know that they work better. Peter Cushing, yes, they even work better on this than they did with Jeff Bridges in the Tron Legacy movie. So it's evolving better. And I think that this one is a great testament about how the de-aging actually has worked better.
Wow, better than Tron Legacy. That's a really hard bar to live up to.
Yeah, that's right.
But, well, let me ask you a question, though. When it's happening, though, are you thinking about the de-aging, or are you thinking about Indy getting the whatever, the Lance of Longinus?
I just become invested in the storyline. I was not even thinking about the de-aging at all. I thought it looked very much like a young Harrison Ford. I was amazed.
I am scared where cinema is going if this is going to become the norm. My next exhibit are the characters, both new and old. They just kind of fall flat across the board. Helena Shaw. She's jammed into the film as Indy's goddaughter by introducing that flashback at the beginning where he has this friend, Boz, as if she has always been a part of his life. This part should have been short round, like the adult short round. Instead of just coming up with someone new, we should go back to someone who's now an adult. And Indy continues to buddy up with her, even though she's left him for dead at several points in the film and is actively working against him at most points. And she's so annoying throughout, always contrarian, always talking, never letting anything breathe, never charming. Then there's Sulla, John Rhys Davis's character. He just sort of teleports into an dark alley to punch someone and say, "Give him hell, Indiana Jones." That's all he does, Have you ever met a friend for coffee or something like that, and you're looking for that meaningful connection with someone who used to mean so much to you, and it just doesn't work? That's what this is to me. Just seeing Sulla doesn't make me happy. I need to have some real connection. I need to really know where he is at this point in his life. I don't get that. It's just a cheap cameo. There's Teddy, who's Shaw's version of Short Round, I guess. He contributes nothing to the story. He flies into that rift behind the Nazi plane, I guess, but there's no reason Helena couldn't have done that. He flat out murders a Nazi underwater, so that's fun to see a kid's murder people. There's Antonio Banderas, who's so forgettable. I bet you forgot he was even in this thing until watching it again. And honestly, this is the part that Sulla should have. He's in the Caribbean, just as Sulla's doing all that Egypt stuff. Why isn't he the one running the boat? Why isn't Antonio Banderas here? There's Mutt Williams, who is not in the story, and admittedly is a one that few people liked in his last rendition, but he is established as Indy's son, and thus the character needs to be a central part of Indy's life. But in here, he's written off as just sort of having enlisted into a war, apparently, to piss Indy off, and then he dies, which leads to the last wasted character for the sake of, oh, my nostalgia, which is Marion, who isn't in the majority of the film. Okay, great. Yeah, glad we spent so much time with both of these characters in Indiana 4, just to get this sort of fake off-screen drama to force the connecting of the dots at the end. There's not a character besides Indiana Jones, new or old, that feels like they belong here.
Mr. the Vern?
All right, so when it comes to the other characters, I thought that not the sidekick of, what's her name, Helena, worked, but I really thought the Helena character worked very well. Here's a woman who was raised by Indiana Jones, only to have her be forgotten about because they went on adventures. Here's the thing, too, folks. Each movie of the Indiana Jones saga is a different story. It has different side characters and different adventures. The only time it connects to anything was when part 4 comes along and you have Marion in there. Now they had to put her back in this new one just to close the loop a little bit.
Saul is in both, and Dr. Brody, he's reoccurring.
Okay, fair enough there. But I don't think he's in the second one. I'm pretty sure.
No, none of them are in the second one.
Yeah, characters come in and out, sure. But in this
film,
like
Temple of Doom is a prequel.
Okay, that's fair. But when watching this, so the woman of the I'm playing right now, Helena, she was the goddaughter to Indiana Jones, and she's feeling very much betrayed because he left. He kind of betrayed her, and so she didn't really have a father figure until later on. She does discover that he's there.
She did have a father figure, and she just like sort of don't put all of her life to his research, just like Indy did with the Grail.
I don't really think that she considered, her real dad to be, her father to begin with.
I don't think she considered any one of them to be like her dad at this point in her life, because she feels like she's on her own. So why is she dragging Indy into stuff?
Fair enough there. All right.
Mr. Haslar, do you want to proceed with your next exhibit?
I feel bad. I like the Vern.
No.
My next exhibit, Your Honor, is the length. There's all this time on that Nazi train to all this time in New York to an overlong parade chase because, hey, we got to have an action scene even if it isn't necessary, to him being framed for murder for some reason, to all this time with Sala because, oh, my nostalgia, to a flashback sequence in the 50s to hammer in that Helena Shaw has always been integral to his life, even though we've never seen or heard of her before, to Morocco, to yet another car chase sequence because those are probably easier to get that more aged Harrison Ford into, to sitting on a boat in search of a different artifact they only made up in the previous scene to lazily make the writers have this piece to get to the real artifact, to an extended dive sequence, to an extended puzzle solving sequence that is useless because the bad guys just follow Indy to the correct destination anyway, to finally getting to the point of it all in Greece. And to focus on that artifact that I mentioned, Archimedes writes this tablet in wax telling people how to find his tomb before he died, apparently, which is pointless and weird. But it's also a lie because the real directions are encased inside. Why would he do that? And then, after this big, long talking about how to solve it, Mad sees them go east or west instead of east anyway, which makes that whole thing about decoding the wax entirely pointless. It's like those worst of the James Bond films where they know where they start, they know where they end, and the rest is just completely superfluous. In the previous Indy films, yes, we had a medallion or a shield that would lead them to where they want to go, but those were both at least introduced early in the film and somewhat fit into the actual lore. So there's a feeling of authenticity there. Both of these artifacts in this film are completely made up. It feels unneeded waste of time. And in a film that clocks in at 2.5 hours, whereas the previous adventures were all around 2, this is all inexcusable. It's boring. You could cut any of these scenes that I mentioned to make it 2 hours and you wouldn't know they were gone.
Mr. the Vern, the running time was a big sticking point for those who are critical of the film. How do you feel about it?
I do agree that the runtime is a little bit long. They definitely could have like shortened those moments, but I kind of like those moments because you get to know a little bit more about Indiana Jones in her life. We get to find out that the reason why he's alone after that big flashback to the beginning is because his wife is divorcing him because their son has died in the war. And she just cannot take the grief anymore, and so she has to leave. So that's why she's not in the movie for the majority of the feature. And I like the moments where Indiana Jones is trying to have a connection. What
objection to that, if I may, though? We only know that they're supposed to be there because they were in the previous films. And as far as like the dramatic impact they have on this film, if you didn't know they were there and you cut those two lines, there's nothing missing.
But no, because are you trying to say that because Marion isn't in this movie until like the very end, it feels like kind of a thrown in element?
She's useless. Yeah, she's just there for nostalgia's sake.
But it's not for nostalgia's sake right there too, because they do explain. Plus, there's the beginning part of the movie too, where he's covering her photo up on the fridge. He's been showing divorce papers, so it does establish in the beginning that he's getting a divorce from Marianne. You're not quite sure why, but you do know that he's getting divorced from Marianne, and so that's the reason why she's not in this. It's not till later on when we do discover that his son Mutt was killed. It must have been the Vietnam War, because this takes place in 1869. So that's why he's not in the feature. And
question from the bench. Do you think that killing off Mutt was the respectful thing to do to that character, or was it just because people don't like Shia LaBeouf anymore?
Anybody wouldn't come back.
I don't. Maybe he just wasn't able to get cast in the movie. Maybe he just didn't want to do it. Scheduling conflicts. I really don't know.
Still, narratively, there's more you can do, even if he's not coming back for whatever reason, to make his presence known. You can have him have a more meaningful impact in Indy's life, rather than, oh, this is the reason we got divorced and we, reunite for like 2 minutes at the end.
Would it be best just have him send like a postcard or something, or
Sure.
or like maybe a voiceover?
Yeah.
Hey, Dad, I'm in Peru. See you later. Not in this movie. Bye-bye.
That'd be even more much of a cop right there.
I live with the monkeys now.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're only giving him like one line in the film anyway, yeah, make it like, hey, here's the postcard on the fridge, Okay, that'd be funny.
Because here we have, Indiana Jones in this movie is old. He's 80 years old, and he's no longer idolized in this story. In the other movies, it seems like people respected him. Students loved him. Girls were flirting with him, writing things on their eyelids. In this one, people are falling asleep in their class because the space race has just happened. So now everyone is now focused on the space race. No one's interested in archaeology anymore.
Wasn't that terrible? How like these guys like wheel in the TV, like interrupting his class? Like, what were they watching the thing? And they're like, oh wait, my friend in Indy's class really needs to see this. Let me wheel it into the middle of his class.
Well, that was a bit in the 60s. That space race was like a huge thing. Everyone was into that.
Right. It would have been like, no one would have been in the class to begin with, right? Like, why are they wheeling it into his classroom?
Well, that was it's like the whole thing when the Space Challenger launched, and we saw that on their TV, roll that into the shows. Or I imagine, like, if Kennedy got shot, that would have been, if kids were able to roll TVs into the classroom about that, they would.
TVs would be rolling everywhere, man.
Yes.
1,000-foot long extension cords, apparently, because it's on.
It's funny this to be kind of like a very tragic thing of Indiana Jones' character, because he was so widely respected and loved for many years. His students loved him, and now he's coming to the point in his life where he's no longer like relevant anymore. He's starting to understand that, hey, I'm getting older now, and things that I may be interested in has no longer interest with anyone else. Now everyone's focused on the space race. No one wants to learn about archaeology anymore. And now he has the chance to go on what may be his last adventure. And I think it's a wonderful send-off to the character.
Mr. Haslar, do you have any further exhibits?
I do. To dovetail on that point about his legacy, we need to talk about the dial, which is like the last piece, which is in this cave that's right out there in the open beneath the Parthenon, that 100% would have been completely excavated by now. And it has like a water displacement puzzle within it that opens up a trap door. So you're telling me that in all these centuries, no archaeologists like thought to go up to that wall and that this cave never became flooded or had a heavy rain that would have exposed this trap door? I call no way, sir. Then they uncover Archimedes' body. And as soon as they show that dumb, stupid watch on his skeleton, my worst fears that have been subtly building up in my mind as to where they might go are confirmed. I know exactly what's going to happen, and I don't want to see it. The whole reason to do a time travel artifact in an old Indiana Jones Chronicles movie would be to examine his legacy, and I'm sure that was the intent in the original draft, but it got lost somewhere along the way. Instead, it's just time travel because, it's such a new and novel concept that's never been done before. So this Nazi brings Indy along for his time travel expedition for reasons. I don't know. He's targeting 1939. They end up in Archimedes' time, which is such a coinkydink. And this time travel jump is dumb for two reasons. One, it would have hit better if they didn't throw this sort of continental drift thing in there to the script to confuse the issue. But two, they say Archimedes made the dial go to his time anyway, like a trick deck. So I guess it always targeted the Battle of Syracuse. But if so, how did Helena get back to the present day? And speaking of that, how does that happen?
Objection there. How did you get back to the present day? Because the time loop window was still open from when they were passing from it before. That's how they're able to get back to the time.
No, it opens and closes. It closed right behind him.
It didn't close right behind. There was still opening right there. I just watched the movie this morning.
That's even stupider. So if they stay up there for like 10 minutes at a time or 2 hours at a time or however long it took, how is no one else observing these big gaping fissures in the sky?
Here's the thing, too, because each sort of like device or thing in Indiana Jones saga uses magic, from the Ark in Raiders of the Lost Ark to the Holy Grail in Last Crusade. These movies are found, and even the spaceships in Crystal Skull, each of these movies focus on a supernatural element.
Yes. And what they do right that this one does not do is they all just he barely touches the beyond. He closes his eyes as the Ark is opened. They don't keep the Grail. He hightails it out of that saucer as the aliens start to come together. He just touches it. He doesn't become fully immersed in it. It's at that point that you completely lose your suspension of disbelief when he's seeing all the ancient Greece stuff. He doesn't belong there.
Exactly, he doesn't belong there, and he Helena realizes that, and because Indiana Jones at this moment is like, look, I lost my wife, I lost my son, I've got nothing happening for me in the world that I'm living right now. I should just stay here and continue my life in this old time. And Helena just sees like, no, you are needed. We need you back in this life, meaning that she needs him back in her life, because for now, her and Indy now have friendship, a connection, a father and daughter like kinship going on right there, and so she needs her back in her life. But not only that, she does know that there's someone else that does need him in her life, and we get that wonderful moment.
Instead of letting him have the retirement he wants to become one with the one thing he loves, she selfishly drags him back. But it's even worse than that.
It's not even selfish. What's selfish about that? She knows that him and Marion are in love and they should just spend their life together. Does he really want to spend his life in like the 19th century?
He said he did.
No, Vern.
No,
that's exactly what he said.
That's what he said, because he thinks that, I lost my wife. I've got nothing else going on for me. All right. If he'd known that Marianne is, there for him all the time, he wouldn't want to stay there. This is a guy that's at the moment of like high depression, and he's just feeling sad and vulnerable to the point where it's like, you know what, I don't care anymore. I'll stay here. I might die. My life doesn't matter anymore. And Helena says, no, I'm taking you back.
He loves history. He loves ancient Greece. He's talking about it and in his classroom. This is where he wants to be.
Yeah, he does love that stuff, but he also kind of does miss Marianne as well. And when she comes back, he can still study history, doesn't need to actually be part of history. And I really just think that him having to come back and reestablish the relationship he had with her and knowing that he can still continue on. There's always a fear of aging and how we want to become part of the past. We always think that life was better back then. I should just go back to the past and I'll be much happier. And not realizing that we are much happier now going forward than we are just remembering the past. All right. That is where nostalgia becomes bad. And I think this movie has a really big message about how nostalgia is bad and looking back is bad instead of just looking
nostalgia
forward.
Like, hey, wasn't Marion great in Raiders?
She was great in Raiders, and she's also great in this too. They have that nice little callback where they say, when she says to him, "How do you feel?" And then he goes, "I hurt. Everything hurts," which is true because when you get older, you do hurt. And she goes, "Well, where does it hurt?" And they had that moment where they kiss parts of the body, and it was very sweet, and it ends just perfectly. I had tears in my eyes with that. It just
Well, if I may rewind just a bit before they get to that moment, Helena punches Indy so hard that it apparently knocks him out for a time travel flight back to the 70s, a flight back to the US, being carried back to his apartment, undressed, put on medication for long enough to hell even get in touch with Marion. And that is just insane. Sure. There's no way she could punch that hard.
Okay, now she was engaged to a gangster. All right. She's been dealing with like swindlers and gangsters and mobsters throughout her whole life, thieves. So I'm sure she knows how to fight. Indiana Jones is a tough guy, but he's also 80. All right. Yeah. So it's not so hard to believe that he could be knocked out.
A time travel flight, like 2 flights, one back in time or forward in time and one to the US. You're out that long. You completely believe that.
You don't. They're tripping drugs on the plane.
Look, there were no drugs on the plane. Where was it established there were drugs?
Do you know? I mean, do you know how long old people sleep for?
Oh my god.
Old people can sleep for a very long time, all right?
Yeah, because they're old. Eventually, they're going to have the big sleep.
Yes, they can sleep for like a very long time.
I'll sleep when I'm dead.
Plus, when it does cut their stuff, we don't see how she got him on the plane and how he stayed asleep for so long. We don't know how much time has passed.
Sense. That's why. That's why they didn't show it.
It'd be completely pointless to have that in a movie because it would be boring to watch. The movie's already long enough. It would even longer.
I'm trying to connect the dots. I'm like, how in the hell did he get to his apartment in New York? When the hell did this happen?
Do you want to watch that? Want to actually see her get him on the plane and on a bus? Do you actually want to see that? No one wants to watch
Vern, remember that murder thing that happened in the beginning? Where did that go? Why wasn't he arrested the second he touched down in New York, even conscious or unconscious?
I'm pretty sure because once he's once he's there in bed, I'm sure police are going, well, he's already in bed right now. We'll arrest him later. And who knows? I'm pretty sure.
Let him sleep it off.
You know what? He's good. He's only got
I'm pretty sure they had there's the that one black lady with the fro. Wait, she died, didn't she? Shit.
She did.
She did.
Another wasted character, by the way.
Sorry, but there are other people.
You watched it this morning, Vern?
But there are people around that probably did prove that he was innocent. All right, that was a very weak part of the story right there. The whole thing about him being framed for murder.
Yeah,
right?
You could have cut
That's
that.
the only weak part of it. All right.
There's no reason for that.
That was the weak part of it. That was the only weak part of it.
Oh, the only one. Okay.
That was the only weak part. The whole him being framed for murder, that probably didn't need to be in there. Because I thought there was for sure someone in the team that was working with Mads Mikkelsen's character that did see that it was one of his henchmen to shoot those other people in the library or his school. But I'm not quite sure now. Yeah.
No, this ending's like an onion, Vern. The more you peel it, the more it stings. On that, the prosecution will rest.
Mr. Haslar is rested. Vern, you may proceed with any further exhibits that you have.
Okay. Well, yes. Thank you very much, Your Honor. All right. I do think that this movie, like I said before, I love the relationship between Helena and Indiana Jones because in all other features, Indiana Jones has a romantic, partner, a sidekick, someone that he's going to fall in love with. And during the course of this movie, you do not know that Marion is going to be in this one. And out of the features, he always has romantic relationship with his sidekick, and I like very much that he did not have a romantic, relationship with Helena. I mean, yes, it's established that it's a goddaughter. It'd be creepy and weird if it did happen, but I like the fact that it didn't happen there. And there's also some great moments in this where Indiana Jones has that line, "It's not what you believe, but how hard you do believe." Because he has that one sequence where he's like climbing and he's talking about all the times he's been shot, about how he's dealt with other magical elements, him dealing with the blood of Kalimara and other situations. Because this man has been through many magical situations, things that are unbelievable to have happened, and yet this will happen to him, and I found it to be very good.
Well, just mentioning these things doesn't, do anything for the movie itself. I need to feel why the dial is important. I don't need to oh, I remember when I watched Temple of Doom and he got a voodoo doll. And with the Helena relationship, again, she's very against him the whole time. Like, I don't understand why he would, be with her so much.
Because they're both trying to get after the Nazi bad guy.
Yeah, one to steal it and one to, put it in a museum or whatever. But
because, I mean, it is his family. He does look after his family. He does.
No, she framed him for murder. That's the whole reason he left. Or the CIA framed him for murder. I don't know. It's very confused.
Did I watch the movie?
She did not frame him for murder. Did you watch the movie? She did not frame him for murder. Right.
But that's the reason he left, is because it's like, oh, I have to leave because I'm framed for murder.
No. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's all I have to. No, wait. Yeah, I talked about the de-aging. Mads Mikkelsen, of all the other villains,
there it is,
in this movie, I think that Mads Mikkelsen does a really great job as the villain in this movie. Because he's not trying to steal the Dial of Destiny, the Archimedes wheel, or whatever it's actually called, to, I guess, rise up the Nazi regime. No, he wants to use it to go back in time and kill Hitler so that he'll become a hero, and he's doing things for his own nefarious reasons. But I thought he does a good job with this. He's up there, I think, with the head villain in Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I think even, he does somewhat the same, the villain in Last Crusade, which I don't think there actually is a villain in Last Crusade. Definitely better than Kate Blanchett in...
Vern, you watch your goddamn mouth.
It's not too late to take it back.
Oh, I did it. I'm joking. No,
like
you watch your goddamn mouth.
All right, straight that from the record. All right,
not stretching it. I'm remembering it forever.
Oh no, he means that.
But
so, Vern, we've had two indie films without Nazis in them. Nazis don't need to be a part of the plot, especially when we're talking about the 70s. This character, he'd probably have like a whole lot of other ambitions by this point. He's become a NASA scientist. He got the Americans on the moon, and he thinks that like Hitler had a good plan, but sort of screwed it up at the end, and he liked the whole Nazi idea. But him flying back as an old man to 1939, he never really details what his plan is beyond that. Just like, I don't know, I'll figure it out when I get there.
I thought his idea was to just, drop like a bomb or whatnot from...
Yeah, but then after that, what? Like, he's like, okay, now Nazis win World War II? Like, there's still like a whole lot of other forces, at stake there. And at some point, your knowledge of the future will stop helping you. And also, he should know this. He's smart. He's very smart. He's a scientist. He got people on the moon. The second he sees like this watch on Archimedes thing, he should realize that time it had always happened. This watch ended up there. He should have put that together. That World War II obviously ended the way it did, and it always would have. So my plan doesn't make sense right here.
Okay, but I feel like these are just kind of like when it comes to like the other villains from the other movies here, they all have like one simple plan. I must get this device because it'll help rule the world, and then nothing else ever happens after that.
Sure, but those devices made sense. The Ark of the Covenant, you carry it in front of your army, you're invincible. Immortality for the Grail, sure, that makes a lot of sense. I don't remember what the Crystal Skulls thing was, but
Knowledge.
Knowledge. Oh. But that's the thing too. The Archimedes wheel gives whoever has it the ability to go into times, and you can change things, and that's it.
He should know that because the watch is on the skeleton. So
yes, that's sort of the. It's the same kind of lesson that the people from Raiders of the Lost Ark learned that they can try to control things, but when they try to control things, nature has a way of like making sure that doesn't happen. Nature finds a way.
Life finds a way.
Life finds a way.
Had his face melted off.
I found a lot of the action scenes, the chase scenes, to be very fun, using that kind of like old school technique where it's like the rear screen with CGI car chases. It's established of the new and the old put together. I thought that was a lot of fun.
Well, there were 2 chase scenes, and you should always only cap yourself at 1. One's enough. You don't need 2.
Yeah, and plus, this movie just kind of starts off with action right away. It has great character development throughout it. I just found it to be just a fun movie, and I think that's all I'm going to say there now, because everything I taught you about, I've already said before about him. Don't respect him anymore. He's old, and he wants to just do one last big adventure. That's it. That's all I'm going to say right now on that, because I said, I like the fact too that Indiana Jones is old, but he's in great shape, and the movie just embraces that, and the action scenes reflect what he can and cannot do. And I talked about those chase sequences, and a lot of times it reminds me of the sort of like serial movies that help inspire Indiana Jones, because it's like each chapter in this could be its own serial. Like you got the adventure at the beginning, and then always getting framed for murder, and then always got the issues going on with Helena at the place where all the gangsters are, and they're trying to do the whole auction happening. Found that to be good. Just each sequence happens in this feels like its own little serial that's going on, and that's it.
Okay. Both sides have rested their cases. The attorneys will now present their closing arguments. Mr. Haslar, you may begin.
How you feeling, Vern? You feeling all right?
I feel good. Thank you.
Okay. I'm glad to hear that, because you're such a good guy. I'm glad you're willing to come onto the show, and
you're a great guy too.
Talk with us. And remember when you won Howard the Duck? Remember what a nice warm feeling that was? Hold on to that, because that's not going to happen this time. I'm sorry, buddy. As soon as they go into those deliberation doors, it's going to be guilty coming out. There's just no way around it. But yeah, I'm glad you're here, and it's always such a fun time talking with you. Peace out.
That's it. Wow. Oh, wow. Okay.
No song.
No. All right.
I'm surprised, actually.
Mr. The Vern, please present your closing argument.
It has been several years after the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull where we got an actual Indiana Jones movie that closed the chapter on this character right. At least in my state right there. I never found... I want to keep going back to that adventure because that was a bad one. But watching this one, it feels like an old school Indiana Jones movie. I found the very beginning sequences with the de-aging not distracting. I found it to be very effective, and I thought it was a very well done with it. It would have been better maybe use younger actor, but I still found it to be very engaging. I found the relationships that he has with the other characters to be good. And I think this movie is a great message about how we should not look into the past so much, remember the past, but also look forward to the future as well. I think Indiana Jones is a character that always want to focus on the past, but never look forward to the future. And now with this series finally capping off, he can finally do that. He has the woman that he loves very much, and even though they lost a son tragically, they can now move on to having more adventures together because Indiana Jones can no longer be that swashbuckling hero that he was in the past. We will always remember Indiana Jones being that way. And I believe this movie sort of establishes that he can be his own hero in his own time with the woman that he loves and be able to go on fun new adventures. And he still saves on the hat. They did not kill him off or try to have a different character. I'm glad they did not have the Helena character become the new Indiana Jones because that would not work at all. I'm glad that he still stayed alive. I'm glad that Indiana Jones is here. Indiana Jones is one of my favorite characters of all time, and I hated the way that he was used in the Crystal Skull movie. I finally get the ending of Indiana Jones that I wanted to have, and it was a great send-off to a wonderful character. His new sidekicks, except for the Teddy character, he sucked, all right? The goddamn monkey in Raiders had more charisma than he does, okay?
Yeah.
But
Preach it.
That's either near or there. That was the only worst thing of the movie. I thought James Mangold did a good job of trying to establish what made these movies fun. And while he did use Spielberg as a sort of catalyst and learning from, I think he took a lot of inspiration from those old movie serials as well. And I like the fact that Indiana Jones is no longer the hero. He has fears about his life. He has fears about what's going on. And there's a great sequence where Helena is talking to Indy about where he would like to go if he has his device. And he says, I would want to go see my son and tell him not to enlist because he's going to die, and the heartbreak he feels knowing that he can help save his son is really great. And I absolutely adore this film. I think it's fun, a little bit overlong at points, but overall it's great. Some minor holes in the plots that I know that our esteemed prosecutor Ben Haslar mentioned to me, which I will agree with right there, but it does not take away from the joy and love I have for Indiana Jones. I thought this was a great set off to a great character. So I am willing to accept my esteemed jurors' decision on this movie, but I just had to make my heartfelt confession that I love this character, and I think this is a great send off to the movie and the series. Do not make any more Disney, all right? Because the next one will suck for sure. But for this last one here, it's a good enough feature to not be called not guilty of being a bad movie. So thank you, esteemed jury and the court.
You want it to be called not guilty.
I want to be called not guilty. Yes, I want this movie to be called not guilty. Yes.
That closing argument was as long as the entire episode. Members of the jury, Mr. Dylan J. Schlender, Mr. Maynard Bangs, and Mr. You should have stayed out of Poland, Ryan Luis Rodriguez. You've all heard the facts concerning this case. It is now up to you to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. The bailiff will escort you to the deliberation room to render your verdict.
Right this way. I like the Vern strategy of saving all your best points until the prosecution can't talk anymore.
All right, everyone. Good case. I mean, this was a long movie, so there was a lot to discuss, and of course it was the end of a series, so we had to touch on many, many things. Maynard, I would like to hear what you're thinking about the case today.
Well, I promised Ben I'd tell this story because I first saw this movie at the drive-in when it came out. And all I remember was the de-aging, and that's around the time I fell asleep. And when I woke up, Indiana Jones was meeting Archimedes. And I went, what the fuck is going on? And I went back to sleep. This time for this trial, I actually watched the whole movie and stayed awake. And apparently I fell asleep sooner than I had thought, because the opening segment, while being way too long and probably being the worst part of the movie, it's not as long as I thought it was. But it is bad. But once we get into more, I mean, I'll call it modern day, but modern at that time, like the 70s, then we start getting into more of the 70s adventure, and that's what I liked about Crystal Skull, is that, it plays with that 50s genre. I would have liked to see them play more with the 70s genre than they did.
60s.
It's 1969.
It's 69,
right?
yeah.
It's practic. It's all right. There was blaxploitation in this movie. I saw it.
Okay, so what? Any particular points that swayed you or made you think about where you're coming down on the movie?
I have a bunch here. I do like Mads as a villain.
Agreed.
Mad about Mads. He's the
wish
best.
he wasn't I do agree with Ben. I wish he wasn't a Nazi. I wish we had stuck with the commies. We already established them as a problem in Crystal Skull. They are still a problem now. Or they could have been Cuban. They could have gone to Cuba. They could have really done some fun shit. Like I said, I hate the de-aging. As far as the going back in time, I agreed with the Vern that it wasn't selfish to pull him back. He did need to come back, not only because he should be with Marion and get that happy ending, but because he would fuck up the past if he was there. Like, really.
I agree with the second part, not the first part. That's so unearned at the end when Marion comes in. It's like, what? Based on what? Your son is still dead. The reason you're leaving him hasn't changed. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Their reason for divorcing didn't make sense. Like, if you're grieving over your son, the thing is not to push away more people, and maybe she just finally realized that. So I don't think it's unearned. And
no, it is. Point to
drag Marion. I don't. You're gonna drag Marion. She's what 70 as well. You're gonna drag her all throughout this adventure. At least Harrison Ford's in some shape.
No, but just to have her show up at the end, it's like, oh, don't forget Marion too. It's like
he needed a happy ending, right? I mean, even though I think Crystal Skull has a happy ending because he's with Marion and he's married and everything's good.
You're right. I also reject Vern's premise on Crystal Skull. Now, I don't enjoy Crystal Skull, but we did establish it is a good movie, and it's way better than this one. Ryan, what are you thinking, my friend?
Hold on. Did we establish that Crystal Skull was a good movie?
We established that it was
not bad.
Okay, whatever. I don't get you guys. But the thing, speaking of Crystal Skull, the thing that really stuck with me when I saw this in the theaters on opening weekend, which I was not excited about because, it's 5. How many good movies are you gonna pack into a 5-film series? I just thought upon about halfway through the movie, I realized Crystal Skull was the natural endpoint to that character. That I did not wish that we revisited him anymore. I think that he ends on such a glorious note at the end of that movie that I do not like. And I think that it's reductive to bring him back, and it feels like a cash grab. And that's really frustrating to me as somebody who idolizes Indiana Jones as a character. And the thing that also really bothered me is that I wish there was more time travel. I knew going in that would be the MacGuffin, because there was somebody took an unauthorized photograph when they shot the scene of the Roman centurion meeting him on the beach. And that got disseminated through the internet, and I found that. And so I knew that was going to be a part of it. But I was hoping that would be one of many destinations. And that maybe the last, if you're going to make a 2-hour and 40-minute Indiana Jones movie, have the last hour and 20 minutes be him constantly going through the time stream.
Trying to catch Mads.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
I mean, they already had
turn it into an actual chase
scenes
across time.
Yeah,
that would be fun.
Good.
And I also wished at the end that he had stayed in the past. I don't care that it would fuck up time. I don't care about any of that. It was where he wanted to be, and I wanted him to end up in the place that he wanted to be.
I disagree with that. It was where he wanted to be out of grief.
Yes, and I think he should have stayed.
I mean, but here's the other thing too.
We needed to make up. Their breakup was baseless.
We don't even know if they are going to stay together. I mean, it was a 2-minute scene. But here's the thing too. I feel like everything. So first of all, I just agree with everything Ben said. I think this new goddaughter coming out of nowhere. It's like, what? And
she is bad.
Instantly unlikable. Her little short round kid does not have the same charisma as
I don't dislike him as much.
Which
as
is funny
because
that was a point that Vern made. And here's the thing too. It's like we get Harrison Ford on a horse. It just reminded me of, like True Lies, and then like him wanting to stay in the past of his like timeline. I mean, it's just like felt like this was just lifting from so much. And you don't have to do that for Indiana. It's Indiana Jones, for crying out loud, like try something interesting. But man, it's like 2 hours. And I did forget Antonio Banderas was in it because he doesn't get to do anything but die. And then Harrison Ford just like, my friend just died. And they're like, oh yeah, sorry. We'll go back to making quips in 3 minutes then. It's the movie's a bit of a mess. It's a bit of a mess. All right, let's get some final thoughts. Ryan, your final thoughts, and then let's lock it in.
I've covered everything that I can possibly say about this movie for the rest of my life. I never need to speak about it again. Let's just pretend that this episode didn't happen. This is a guilty. This is not as good as Crystal Skull. Okay,
a gentleman's.
I don't care for this movie. It is not as good as Crystal Skull.
A gentleman's
4.
That high, amazing. Maynard, your final thoughts and your vote.
Like I said, my second viewing was very different from my first. I think I went in a lot more open-minded, wanting to like it.
But did you?
I didn't hate it as much as I thought I would. That's kind of where I am. They're like, even if I end up going guilty, Harrison Ford to me is not guilty. I'm glad they waited another 20 years. If this franchise was going to work, it works in 20 years chunks. I want to see Indy in a new decade. They didn't capitalize on putting him enough in the late 60s, 70s. They didn't capitalize on that enough besides a parade scene, basically. I would have liked to see more. But I do kind of want to make it sporting, and I have an idea where Schlenzo's going to go anyhow. I like Mads Mikkelsen, and I have no idea where we're going, but it sure as hell ain't 1939. So on that line read alone, I'll go not guilty. I'm going to put in Schlenzo's hands.
Oh, very, very good. Well, look, I thought I loved Vern's impassioned plea and his love for Indiana Jones. He clearly has a lot of respect for the franchise and love for the character, but this movie is just not it. I could not take anything away from Ben's points that said, well, I don't even necessarily disagree with that. Everything rang true. And there's so much more bad stuff we could have talked about, but we just don't have enough time. This podcast is in 2 hours and 40 minutes. And you already forgot that Antonio Banderas was in it. So
in our podcast?
He was a guest once. Super fans may know.
He was on the Neil deGrasse Tyson Porky's 2 episode.
Wow, deep cut.
I know. All right, let's get out there and tell that very handsome judge.
Mr. Foreman, have you reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor. In the case of The People versus Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, we find the defendant guilty of being a bad movie.
This is outrage. This is an outrage. I will appeal. That's right. You haven't heard the last of me. I'll get to the Lord up there. I will sue everyone here.
Put your dukes up. Come on.
The verdict is so rendered. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is hereby sentenced to a reboot starring Chris Pratt, which no one asked for, but then again, no one asked for this either. Court is adjourned.
Of all of our crazy verdicts, that one might actually happen.
Well, that scares me.
Really good. Guten Tag. This is Dr. Johann Hans Johnson, loyal American scientist, reporting to you live from outside the Reels of Justice, where a real travesty has occurred. Big Ben Haslar, how did you feel about the jury's verdict?
Well, I'm just scared that old Ben... Whoa. I'm just scared that old Ben apparently has dementia because he confused Ryan for Rob, so that's going to be fun. Fun journey line ahead on my timeline. But no, justice was served. I'm sad Indy had to go this way. I wish they didn't have to do the cash grab at the end. It was just so unnecessary. But it's great to have the Vern on the show. I stand by that. But yeah, good day in court, and a nice American T-shirt with an eagle on it.
Yes, I have, and I paid extra tax on it as well. Mr. Vern, or is it
Yes.
the Mr. Vern? How did you feel about that verdict?
You know, I went to this case with a lot of like on my shoulders. I know this would be a hard thing to beat. This is about the same thing if like someone was trying to defend Roman Polanski and says, "Oh, he's not such a bad guy." So I know trying to defend this movie is
He's not that bad. I know him personally.
I know this would be a difficult case to go for, and I'll put this in the published hand. If you like this movie, like it, all right? Embrace that you love Indiana Jones, because there's a lot in this movie that I did enjoy. The jury found it otherwise not, but hey, that's fine.
Oh, say, can you see? Now we go back to post-trial analysis.
Come on, have a beer with me. Come on, let's sing and drink. And
All right, but only American beer.
Only American.
It's the best beer.
We didn't do Hulk Hogan's "I am a real American."
That's all we can sing of that. That's it. He's very litigious, as you know.
Oh my God, he is.
Yeah, no. Great case. I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but with how bad my first viewing was, I think when I saw it the second time, I was like, "Oh, this wasn't."
You missed
bad.
the punchline of that story that I loved, where you thought, oh, "No, that's stupid. I must have dreamed that."
Well, yeah, I couldn't remember the first one.
Oh my
It
goodness.
was silly. I didn't. I remember very
Have
little.
any of you ever watched the Young Indiana Jones series?
Yes.
I want to.
Yes.
I really
Are-
want to.
Are they good?
No.
Is this better than is that Dial Destiny better than them?
Impossible.
No. They're about the same.
They're about the same. Okay.
Is it
Are some of
animated or
them
live
good?
action?
No, live action.
Live action
It's on
with the
Disney
young
Plus.
Ryan
All
Gosling.
the episodes are there.
Wait, no,
Correct.
Ryan Gosling was young Hercules. So who's
Well-
young Indiana Jones?
Can
River
young
Phoenix?
Indiana Jones beat up James Bond Jr.?
That's the
Absolutely
point.
not.
I mean, that's now, Vern, what have you been up to lately? What's been keeping you busy?
What's keeping me busy right now is doing episodes of Cinema Recall. We are in the midst of our Yahoo for Yargos series, chronicling the movies of Yargos Lanthimos. Our dear friend Ryan Luis Rodriguez was on our most recent episode talking about Poor Things. But we have episodes on the killing of a sacred deer and on Darktooth. And coming next week is The Favorite with Jim of Film Rage.
And on
I
the
thought you
episode
talked about
that I
movies.
did, on the episode that I did, Vern, you said that Emma Stone was going to win Best Actress, and I told you were wrong. Well, I have to apologize to you now, sir. You were right.
Give him that $20.
I got
Yes.
it wrong.
Hey, it's all right. You know, everyone can be wrong once. And sorry.
Well said.
Everybody gets one.
Everybody gets one.
No. But as a first choice, everyone thought Lily Gladstone was going to win. And during that moment before they called her name, I'm like, it's going to be Lily Gladstone. It's probably going to be Lily Gladstone. I'm hoping it's Emma Stone, but it's probably going to be Lily Gladstone. Oh shit, it is Emma Stone. Wow. Okay. Damn. All right. You go, girl. That's right. Get naked in more movies and win more Oscars because of it. Because
It was a good performance.
Vern, you
Yes.
really got to stop saying that.
Hey, it's gonna work for John Cena. Just wait. Oh, cool. So we'll check that out now. What's coming up? Because I'm sure this Yorgo. Who knows? That was probably last month, real good. But maybe what's anything more contemporary?
And I know that I'm also working right now on doing a new audio drama. We're going to be doing an audio drama of Reservoir Dogs with an all-female cast.
Which is not going to be Reservoir Cats, you told me.
Nope, it's all going to be Reservoir Dogs. They're all going to use the same names as the male counterpoints. I'm just going to rewrite it.
Are there any
with
copyright
women.
infringement issues? Or?
But does it
Probably
so they
not if
all
you
wanna
don't
be-
change it.
They all want
Yeah.
to be Mrs. Pink then.
As long as you, Mrs. Pink is a little too close to Mrs. Penis. So
Well, they have to change when characters refer to other people as I can't say he. I got to change the he to her and all that stuff. But otherwise, it's going to stay
then
exactly
change the Misters to
same.
Miss. Why not?
No, I'm keeping it as Mister.
All right. Okay.
Well, I can't wait to listen to all of it. That's
But-
going to be wonderful.
But yeah, as long as you're not making money either on it, Ben, I think you probably.
I'm not making it. I am not
So I
making
can sing
1
whatever
cent.
I want in every episode.
I suspect he's losing
1 cent
money
on
on
this.
it.
I'm losing, but yes, putting all this shit together
Well,
and
I
edited.
personally value Vern's time at no less than $30 an hour.
Well, it
Right.
probably
So
matters
you-
where it's going to be too, because I mean, somebody on those podcast platforms is making money, even if it's not us, Ben.
who's making money at this stuff?
That's a secret.
Someone on a yacht somewhere, man. Absolutely.
What's this yacht? Is this yacht run by Antonio Banderas?
Yes, but not for long.
Oh, not for okay. Fair
I
enough.
forgot.
Oh, poor Antonio. Now, we always ask our guests for movies that you think people should see. So, Vern, you've always got a good cachet of them. What is a movie that you think people should see?
Well, I am going to recommend a movie that recently won Movie of the Month over at the Large Association of Movie Blogs. My pick, The Neon Demon.
Okay.
The Neon
yeah.
Demon is from Nicholas Winding Refn, starring Elle Fanning, Christina Hendricks, Keanu Reeves in this one, and it's all about Jenna Malone is in this movie. And it's all about this fashion model who comes to LA to make it big, and when she does, strange things happen to her involving a group of witches who want to harness her powers
A
to
coven?
make them. Yes, a coven. I say yes, to make them more beautiful. It's
And
visually.
the Neon Demon has to stop him.
Yeah, well, maybe you have to watch the feature to find out. But it's a movie that's visually just so pleasing. It's got a great score from Clint Mansell and wonderful
Ooh, he's good.
cinematography from Natasha Breyer, if I'm saying that right. But I think this movie is just gorgeous to look at. Not so much heavy on plot or acting. It's more of just the aesthetic of it. And when they talk about style over substance, this is majorly style over substance, but I don't care because it looks gorgeous, like just candy, just wonderful candy, just dripping everywhere. And I love it.
What kind
So,
of
yeah.
candy are
Quote.
you eating, Vern?
Drippy candy. It's hot wherever.
What kind are you not
It's
eating,
my-
Schlender?
It's my, I'm going to get fucking stoned to this shit, all right? And I love it.
There you go. Big Ben, what are you getting stoned to?
Nothing. But if I had Archimedes' dial, it should come as no surprise to everyone that I would set it to feudal Japan to experience those ancient Japanese markets, eat all that old-timey street food, and walk the Tokaido Road, visiting every temple along the way.
You'd
I
be
would
dead in
also
10
like-
minutes.
Yeah, exactly. That was my joke. You stole it. I would be
I'm
disemboweled by
sorry.
a samurai after accidentally addressing him in the wrong tense or something. So I guess it's lucky that I can visit feudal Japan vicariously through my Rob commendation or my Ryan commendation today, The Tale of Zatoichi. Zato, meaning the lowliest class, and Ichi, the main character's name, but also means number one or best, has one of those kind of contradictory titles like Back to the Future. But it's true of the same. It's true of Ichi. He's a blind masseur. He's a dice player, which is like the lowest position you can have at the time. But he also happens to be an amazing swordman, despite being. He can beat up the best of them, making him the daredevil of feudal Japan. And in the first chapter, what turned out to be a 26-long series produced by Daiei, one of which I already Dylan in a previous episode.
That's true.
That one's a little forced.
No, he did. It's true.
The puns keep coming. I love it.
The film makes great use of the dark light contrast. It's like two of them were done in black and white. This is the first one. The story is your typical cursed warrior fare. Ichi is hired to protect one guy, and he makes a friend with a different guy hired to protect an enemy, and thus their blades are destined to meet. Ichi is a standout in Japanese cinema, and I was fortunate enough to get my hands on that lovely Criterion box set, so my Ben commendations are likely all set until July.
Oh, fantastic! So you have
Bad
all
recommendation.
26 in the. There's like the box set with all the movies.
Yeah,
That's what that
all
is?
of them. And
Oh,
it's-
that's so
Box
cool.
Thank God,
God, I
for that
love those.
Criterion sale.
yeah,
I love
that's
those
someone told me
movies.
about.
Delicious. Ryan, what'd you get from the Criterion sale?
I got a bunch. I got all the 4Ks that I didn't have. So I got the Apu trilogy. I got Train Spotting, Blood Simple, Lone Star, The Roaring
And you're recommending one of these?
No, I'm not.
Oh,
You're recommending.
I'm recommending,
Ooh.
quite predictably, another recent release. One of the best films of 2023, Wim Wenders' Perfect Days. It follows a modest, practically silent janitor of a public toilet in Tokyo. We go through various shifts with him as he drives to work, listening to cassette tapes of Lou Reed and Patti Smith, goes about his occupation, bathes in the public baths, reads William Faulkner before bed, then starts up the whole routine again the next day. It boasts Wenders' trademark brand of understated nuance and observation, presenting the audience with a real slice of life and allowing them to determine what it all means, bordering on the profound. The film has no real story to speak of. It just goes about its business just like its protagonist. It's all process, and I found it tremendously rewarding and quite lovely in its execution. Perfect Days is, as of this recording, still in theaters, but since it's distributed by Neon, it should be on Hulu soon.
Ooh.
I swear to God,
Ooh, I
someone's
can't wait for that.
recommended that or mentioned it on the show once before.
No.
Oh, it was
All
my
right.
choice to win for best international feature, even though I haven't seen it. It just was a very sweet movie. The preview was sweet, and I wanted sweetness instead of the Zone of Interest, which was not sweet. But
Here it is, Ben. He's here to defend Isle of Destiny and
No.
trash Zone of Interest. I told you his plan is coming to fruition, but you'll have to
That
save
is
your
all out of Dial of
prosecution of
Destiny.
Zone of Interest to next time. But at least there's
That's-
the Nazi overlap. Schlenzo, what have you got?
Well, my recommendation is in the same vein of tonight's movie. I'm looking at a franchise that's gotten a little long in tooth, and that's Kung Fu Panda 4. I know Big Ben said the conversation for 2024's Best Picture is over with Dune 2, but on the contrary, my friend, it is just getting started with Kung Fu Panda 4. The Kung Fu Panda needs to find and train his replacement and selects an unusual candidate. Look, this movie's not going to blow any minds, but it has fun for the whole family, some sweet action, and the friendship between the two main characters feels very genuine. And frankly, we know that is a hard balance to strike if this Indiana Jones showed us nothing else.
Wait, there's 4?
This is the
Yes.
fourth.
This
Where
is
the
what
hell
we
was
call-
I?
And a TV show.
What?
Don't forget the TV show. This is true. And probably toys and all sorts of good stuff. Now,
Did I
currently...
go back in time and like totally dip out? Did someone knock me out? Who punched me? All right.
It was our smallest woman.
Yes. So currently it's only in theaters, but I assure you, Maynard, you'll want the full big screen, the 3D glasses, the chair-shaking sound that only DreamWorks can deliver.
Oh, well, I'm not going to go. I don't even know if I think I've seen the first one. Not too sure.
I've only seen 2, so I don't know which one I missed. I think the Vern and I might have got knocked out at the same time.
Probably, yes.
It's
We
Jack
were.
Black, right? So
Oh, yeah.
no, kids love it.
Yeah, no, it's a fun little movie. It's a sweet little movie. It doesn't.
How did
like I
the
said,
kids
won't blow
like
your
it?
mind. The kids loved it. They had a great
Okay,
time.
we'll see. I'll trust that.
Yeah.
Nah, they love everything. They're like Vaseline on toast. You know, going back in time can be a tricky business. A single decision could alter the course of history. Just ask the bailiff. He himself was once president of Algeria. My
According to that email
recommendation
chain, anyway.
this week concerns the consequences of time travel. It's the final countdown from 1980.
Wait, is
Besides,
that the band Europe?
correct. Besides
Wow.
being the most kick-ass arena anthem around, the final countdown sees a modern day to 1980, I should say,
Naturally.
aircraft carrier get pulled into a time warp and transported to 1941, just hours before the attack on Pearl Harbor. As the men aboard slowly begin to accept the reality of their situation, they are faced with the difficult decision of whether or not they should interfere and possibly alter the course of the war. At the helm of this picture is none other than Martin Sheen and the great Kirk Douglas. So it delivers in star power. It was also produced by a young Lloyd Kaufman a few years before Troma really took off, so it also delivers in schlock power. I am saddened to report, however, that the song by Europe is not featured, probably because it wouldn't be released for another 6 years.
Oh, no.
But that didn't deter me from enjoying the film all the same. And if you like weighty discussions about the moral implications of time travel, this one is worth your time. And it's currently streaming on... Where
way.
else?
Criterion.
Peacock!
Oh.
And Amazon.
Oh.
And Pluto TV.
Oh.
And
Oh,
yes,
it's coming.
even Tubi.
Tubi!
Plus about a half dozen more platforms. Frankly, there's a strong chance the movie may already be playing in the same room as you right now. Just turn around and enjoy.
It has a knife. Ah!
Now there's a deep cut.
Wonderful.
Now, with that, we are all at a show, but of course, we want to thank our guest, the Vern, for joining us. Thank you so much, Vern.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on here. I enjoyed coming on here to defend or prosecute things that I may not have the expertise as other people in the Rules of Court Justice have. But yes, Ben's are experts. But I just have a fun time coming on here, and I hope I just did my best. That's all I come here for. Try my best.
It was a fun time. We always
Yes.
have a blast with you, Vern.
You didn't have
Thank
a lot to work with, but I look forward to hearing you prosecute Zone of Interest.
I didn't say that. Well, I don't know if I can do
you
that.
already
Yes.
signed up, frankly. All right. Are you free next week?
Oh my god.
We hope everyone else is free for that one too, as the reels of justice keep turning.
Count it.
Antonio!
Please follow us on Twitter at Reels of Justice, Instagram Reels of Justice, and Facebook.com/Reels of Justice.